Hello and welcome to the DJ Podcast. I'm your host, Paul. This is episode number 240, and I'm joined today by Chris from the site. Welcome, Chris.
G'day. It's great to be back yet again this week. Plenty to talk about.
Definitely. And in case you're noticing, listeners, you may not notice because we'll probably have up, if I do this right, a audio file on the site, and of course, this video podcast via YouTube. So this is the first time we're doing this. We're experimenting with a bit of free software at the moment. Might look into something better depending on the reaction to this. So if you want to see more, we do more of this. We'll do both audio and video as we try and improve what we do on the site and just try a few more things. Now that the internet gods have graced me with faster internet, we can actually use it. Am I right?
Yes. Parts of Australia are now getting the NBN, or they have had for quite a while. But yes, it's a lot better now.
Indeed. Well, just to give you a basic tour, without doing a full tour, this is my game room. You'll probably see me filming most of what I do in here, listeners. So, I've got stuff everywhere. Fan of lots of things. Ahoy! Oh, she's missing an arm. God, the kids gave it back to me, and they said, "Oh, geez, hang on, here's another one. He's got two arms, thank goodness. There we go. Woohoo! There we go. All right, let's get started. Yeah, he's going to hit the old rubbish heap now. All right, so let's kick off with some of the news for the week, listeners. So it's been a quiet week, with the exception of the bombshell dropped by Microsoft in regards to the Xbox Scorpio. Now, what was interesting is Digital Foundry they're the hardware experts, and what they basically did is they got the lowdown on the Xbox One or Xbox Scorpio. I shouldn't call it Xbox One Scorpio, X1 Scorpio, whatever you want to call it. Let's call it Scorpio. They got to get a decent look at the final hardware specs, and they had a lot to say about it, which is fantastic. But I was a little bit surprised that there wasn't actually a reveal event or anything like that, like a tech spec reveal first. Like, this is kind of different. Do you think?
Yeah, it's a little strange. They kind of just gave an exclusive look and left the rest behind. I guess it's I don't know. It might be an interesting strategy considering maybe building some more hype around it.
Definitely, I think. Yeah, and I think Microsoft, in the comparison to Sony, has been given a bit of flack in terms of, Sony is consistently releasing news all throughout the year at their own events, at their own game shows, and then here's Microsoft, at E3, and then it's kind of quiet for the rest of the year. And you got to sort of think, well, maybe it's a better strategy to drip feed bits of information, similar to what Nintendo does with its Direct, like doing those all over the place. I mean, let's not just be so regimented with our annual information purges of data. Like, let's do something like this a bit earlier. So maybe getting those tech specs out there as a first step for me, I think, was a good move because it takes a lot of that draw away from E3 listeners. So, and Microsoft said, and when I say Microsoft, I'm talking Phil Spencer. We get up on stage and we have this rush to get, we've only got an hour and a half and there's so much to show and so much to do, and we have to basically get everybody out at the one time, talking about their games, what they're doing, where the system's going. It doesn't leave a lot of time for really showing off the games, and I think that's where Microsoft this year is trying to go. They're trying to get most of this technical mumbo jumbo out the way and leave E3 more for the games. Because let's be real, Chris, I mean, some people are saying it's not really the year for Microsoft so far in terms of exclusives or even this generation.
Yeah, it's a bit like that. You actually took the words right out of my mouth. I think it's a great strategy because getting the hardware out the way and just bringing the games at E3, because let's be honest, I think the general consensus will say that Sony and the PS4 have kind of got the reins on exclusives and brand new titles. And let's look at the titles for this year. I mean, we've got Forza 7 on the way for the Xbox. What else is really left? Maybe another Gears of War, but that's not confirmed. So maybe another Halo. But yeah, it's a little bit bleak, and hopefully Microsoft will kind of bring the goods at E3.
We can only hope, because the fans are consistently saying this. Where are the games? Where are the games? Bring the games. So, and we don't want another Scalebound. So we don't want to, we don't want to, on the flip side, announce games too early and they get cancelled, and then the hype train sort of dies and people get a little bit peeved. But anywho, let's move on to what some of these specs are. Now, I've called this podcast Scorpio is a beast. And I say that with pretty good reasoning, because if you've seen the specs, this thing is a beast. Now, before I get into the specs, Daily Joystick is full of a diverse team of people, listeners, as you probably know. We've got our PlayStation guys, we've got our Nintendo guys, we've got our Xbox guys, we've got our PC guys as well. And one thing, even got a Vita guy. That's this guy in this podcast. Yeah, he has a Vita, listeners. There's a lot of diversity, and we've had the discussion about, is Xbox trying to become a PC? And I think you were on that conversation too, Chris, the other day we had, and it was a fair point. We've got bigger GPUs and the cost being up to nearly $700-800. Shane saying, well, just go buy a nice PC and be done with it. And it's like, I still think there's that strong gap between a console and a PC, right? Yes, you can build a better PC, spend $1,000, $1,500, depending on what part of the world you're from, and build yourself a great PC with a great video card. That will be better than what the Xbox One Scorpio is going to be, right?
Yeah.
Without a doubt. But it's that whole fixed platform that I think makes a console still a console. I just think this is bringing the Xbox One or the Scorpio, apart from extending its life, I think it's trying to close that gap, but it's never going to try and surpass it. So I just think it's still very much in the console space, albeit a very powerful console. What are your thoughts, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually coming from a PC background. I've always had a console, but I kind of made the switch about 5 or 6 years ago, coming into the
Nintendo Switch.
No pun intended. But yeah, I kind of switched that up coming into the PS3. But I think the Scorpio, let's look at it this way. It's really nothing like a PC. It is trying to close that gap, but let's be honest, the whole reason we go to consoles is for exclusives and the accessibility of a console. Just picking up the controller and just switching it on and you're straight into the game. Whereas with PC, I know that Steam actually are bringing the Steam Link, and big picture mode and all that kind of thing to bring that console experience to PC. But
definitely
at the end of the day, I think in terms of the Scorpio coming to the market, I think it's just going to basically one up the PS4 Pro, because specs wise. But number two, also maybe bring some and convince some PC gamers to make the switch, or even have the Scorpio alongside, because they are very similar. But you're getting that Gears of War, you're getting that Halo, you're getting that Forza, all the Xbox exclusives. So yeah, there's a lot to think about. And yeah, it's even got me interested, and I'm very skeptical towards like the PS4 Pro and the Xbox, Slim and all the iterations. I'm not really about that, but yeah.
And that was part of the conversation we had, because I think someone was saying not ready for a next generational change, and it's like, hang on, back up. This isn't a generational change. So when you go from Xbox to Xbox 360, you threw all your games out, you threw your hardware out, you threw your controllers out, your cables, your accessories, everything was gone, and you moved to a new platform, right? That's how it traditionally worked. And you get, your 10 years, your 7 years, all right, the 360 and the PS3 was an example of a very long in the tooth cycle, which won't be repeated again, where everyone sort of said back to the 4 or 5 year mark. But then you got these cycles where now what Microsoft's trying to do is say, well, hang on, the Xbox One's been out for 3 to 4 years now. It's got a great library of titles. We've now had a mid-cycle upgrade where we had the Xbox One Slim. So, if I buy, let's say, Forza Horizon 3, I can play it on my Xbox One at 1080p, or I can play it on my Xbox One Slim via my 4K TV in upscaled 4K, right? The Scorpio adds another layer to that. It's still within the same generation. It's still within the same family of console. It's still going to be the same disc. So you're going to buy Forza 7, right? And you're going to put it in your Xbox One, your Xbox One Slim, or your Xbox Scorpio. And the difference is with the Scorpio, you'll play that game natively in 4K, not upscaled, natively. And it's really 3 consoles for 3 different types of gamer, depending on your price, your budget, and what you really want out of it. It's no different to being a PC gamer, having a mid-range PC. Sure, if you wanted to, you could go out and grab the latest video card. What is it, the 1080, 1070, or 1060?
Yeah.
NVIDIA, GeForce, whatever the number they're up to. That's where CJ would help, because I think he's just bought it, listeners. But you could basically buy that top-end card and have that top-end experience if you so choose. But if you don't, that's okay, because you're still playing and enjoying that game, which I think is a fantastic thing. So I think it's a great opportunity to give people the ability with the Scorpio to choose that high-end option. Now, exactly how much it will cost for that high-end option is still to be revealed, although estimates are out there. We're talking, PS Pro price is $599 Aussie. It's estimated to be $100 US more, so maybe $699, $750. I would, $750 is where I'm benchmarking this, listeners, as a starting price for that amount of hardware. And when you look at the hardware in a minute, you'll see why, because it is noticeably different. Let's look at the hardware, actually. So I'll try and break these specs down for you, and we'll again, I'm not a tech expert, guys, so again, most of what I'm saying is going to be regurgitated, but that's okay. The main bits you'll understand. CPU, the brain of the console. Xbox One has 8 custom Jaguar cores running at 1.75 gigahertz. The PlayStation 4 Pro has the same, 8 Jaguar cores clocked at 2.1 gigahertz, which is quite a amount faster. And then you got Scorpio, 8 custom x86 cores. I love when they say the word custom. Like, what did you guys do to it? Put NOS through it or something? Like, explain custom, right? So custom cores running at 2.3 gigahertz. Without even knowing what makes custom better, just the sheer speed increase there from 2.1 to 2.3 was quite substantial. The biggest one, though, is the GPU. So the GPU, if I'm not mistaken, Chris, is what does all the graphical editing. It's where all the video comes to life, right? And it's dedicated memory, right? That's why you put a video card into your PC. Same with your console. Correct. So the Xbox One is running 12 GCN compute units at 853 megahertz. Now, to give you a comparison, the Xbox One S or Slim is 914 megahertz. So there's a slight power advantage with the Xbox One S. Now, PlayStation 4 Pro has 36, 36 up from 12, improved GCN compute units at 911 megahertz. So same speed as the Xbox One S, but 12 to 36. So that's 3 times as many. Which is impressive. The Xbox Scorpio bumps that up to 40 customized compute units at 1172 megahertz. Pretty powerful. Now, again, this is where all the teraflops basically come into it here. I can't convert that. The article at Digital Foundry will give you more information on that, but on the outset, it's allowed 4K to really be delivered at a native resolution, which most people were kind of skeptical on at first. But when you actually start looking at what it was doing and running, and even the tech demo of Forza 7, it wasn't even running at 60% CPU and GPU utilization when it was rendering that game in full 4K.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good sign. Memory, I think RAM is the biggest player here, because as you saw with PlayStation 4 and Xbox One when they launched, even though they both had the same amount of RAM, which was 8 gigabytes, I believe, 6 or 8 gigabytes, I can't remember.
That sounds right.
Sorry, 8 gigabytes, my bad. The fact that the Xbox One was DDR3 versus the PlayStation 4 Pro, the PlayStation 4, which was GDDR5, that faster speed RAM made such a difference to the performance of the systems. Even though Microsoft had 32 meg ES RAM, which developers could have used, the results were obvious. Spend more time coding for the ES RAM or just code for normal RAM, and the results were amazing. And most games tended to run better on the PlayStation 4. That was pretty obvious. Not by a huge amount, but even with the same amount of RAM, you can't say I've got 8 gig and you got 8 gig, because it's the type of RAM and the speed it runs at, and that's where your bottlenecks come out. If you got slow RAM but fast video card and a slow motherboard, like, it's all got to work together. I like to look at it for the car enthusiast, the guy that puts on a cat back exhaust, right? It sounds good, but it ain't going as hard as going 3-inch pipe all the way through, if you follow where I'm going with this. So you start from one end to the other and you make it so everything can travel at the same speed. So Xbox One had 8 gig of DDR3. The PlayStation 4 Pro has 8 gig of GDDR5. And the Scorpio whops in at a whopping 12 gigabytes for a console. And you've got to remember, the consoles have to leave a couple of gig aside out of that to run the OS and everything else. So they're talking about safely leaving 3 aside and still having 9 gig to play with. I mean, that's massive. That's a massive amount of RAM. And I think this next line, the memory bandwidth here, is the point I was explaining before. So with the DDR3 for the Xbox One, it was only moving stuff around the RAM at 68 gigabytes per second. When you compare it to the Pro's 218 gigabytes per second, massive bandwidth differential there. And then you've got the Scorpio at 326 gigabytes per second. Like, again, a monstrosity for moving that RAM around. Hard drives, who cares? Put external on, but they're all going to have a terabyte. And of course, the PlayStation 4 Pro has a Blu-ray drive, whereas both the Xbox One Slim and the Scorpio have a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray drive present. What do you make of those specs, Chris, in terms of what you've heard there?
Well, I come from a technical background by day, but from my standpoint, I actually think the CPU is the most important part here. I mean, when you're thinking about general processing of an application, I don't want to get too technical here, but CPU is always the bottleneck. Memory can be freed up on the fly, and the GPU is rendering all your video and your textures. But when it comes to actual processing power, that's where the CPU comes in. Now, RAM is, 12 gig is pretty generous for a console. We actually haven't seen that before. This is a first. But considering the price of RAM, I still feel like they could have given it 16 gig just for that extra. Because as you know, obviously the Xbox One has multitasking capabilities. I feel like they could have gone that extra mile. I mean, it probably would have been $20 extra per console. I mean, if you're cutting costs, then maybe. But as a whole, I think it's a pretty significant jump over what we currently have across the board. So PS4, PS4 Pro. But to be honest, we need to see the developers actually make use of it, because that's the most important part. So whether we
Absolutely.
see iterations of current games, or whether it's just the new games that are taking advantage of it, I'm not so sure. Maybe you can chime in, Paul. But yeah,
Mm.
I think you're getting your money's worth with this. It's a very targeted approach.
What's the money?
Microsoft.
And what's the money question too? Which
Yeah.
is that's a good question. I mean, they also said, and I'll quote something here with the demo of Forza. So it ran natively in 4K at 60 frames per second. And Digital Foundry reports Scorpio's GPU utilization ran in the 60 to 70% range during the demo. Even if the demo was running at a fidelity equivalent to the ultra settings of its PC Windows version, so running on ultra, the GPU hit 88%. So in other words, there's still a good amount of overhead even after scaling games to 4K resolution in this instance, which is good. So hopefully Xbox can lose that 900p stigma, because I definitely think we've got a lot of power here with with these specs here. But again, 16 gig, would it have hurt? Maybe not. Again, but price. So price is something I'm sure Microsoft is very conscious of, because you don't. I mean, the PlayStation 4 Pro is delivering that increased experience, right, with its improved machine. And so is Xbox with its Scorpio. But you don't want to price Xbox too far from the Scorpio, albeit it is more powerful, because you don't want people to, I'll just go the PlayStation Pro route for my 4K, even though it's kind of not true 4K. But, maybe, again, like you said, Chris, this isn't for the mainstream consumer, is it? This is for the person that says, you know what, I want every that I can get for the money I'm paying, without going to a PC setup. That's where this is targeted at.
I guess, as a general consumer, the only real attraction, at least from my standpoint, I don't actually own an Xbox One, so I'm coming into this fresh. I see this as future proofing. So if I actually step in, Paul didn't like that one.
Now he tells me, listeners.
But for those who don't know, like, Forza is my favorite racing series. I've got all the Forzas on the Xbox 360, so the general progression is to the Xbox One. For me, I see this as future proofing. So if I'm going to grab an Xbox One, I'll grab the Scorpio, and I'm set for the rest of the Xbox's life. I've got a 4K TV, so it makes sense for me to just step in for, a couple of $100 extra and just grab the latest and greatest. What I want to see, and this will actually sway my decision, is if developers take advantage of the specs, because that is the biggest thing. Otherwise, you're just going to have games running how they are on the Xbox One. And I guess it just depends on how the Scorpio handles existing titles.
And it's not as easy as what people think. A developer just can't dial up the boost here, to use an example. You just can't increase the frames per second and go, okay, it's unlocked, guys, 60 frames all the way. No, it's not that easy. There's, the game is built to that resolution and that hardware and that performance. And as you've seen, games ran worse on the PlayStation 4 Pro with better hardware, because they weren't optimized for that hardware. And there's been so much conjecture around that. You were getting a lesser experience, because what the PlayStation was trying to do, and checkerboarding and all this sort of stuff, it worsened the end result, which is not what you want from a more powerful machine. And that's the key here. And I think people need to realize that, developers are going to have to code their games to take advantage of all three variants. So think of yourself as a Forza 7 developer, right? Turn 10. they need to make sure that the game runs flawlessly in 1080p, 60 frames per second, which will be what the Xbox One user would have.
Yeah. Yeah.
They then need to make sure it runs even better for those that are having it upscaled on the Xbox One S. And then they're going to have to make sure that those settings are there to run in true native 4K at 60 or even 90 frames per second and be, again, absolutely flawless for Scorpio users. So they've got to basically do, I'm viewing this as a medium, high, and ultra versions of their game. And people are saying, oh, that's going to be so much work for developers. Well, not really, because if you're developing a game for a PC, you're already catering to 20,000 video cards, motherboard setups, RAM options. This is why you have the minimum specs and the recommended specs, right? That's the range that the game would work within. The consoles, really, you're giving them 3 fixed points. And then you've got, again, the same deal with, say, a cross-platform title. Let's say the next FIFA title. You're going to have to do the exact same thing, but for the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 4 Pro. So you've got 5 different hardware variants from what was traditionally 2 consoles. So, yeah, there'll be a little bit of extra pressure on developers, but nothing I don't think that they can handle. Because if you're making a PC port for a game, you are already accounting for so many different system setups that it should not be a problem.
Correct.
But granted, there will be some extra costs.
Yeah, I was just about to step in and say, from a developer standpoint, how it actually works is, they develop it for the strongest platform, or should I say the strongest hardware, and then scale it back down to whatever else they need to. So, Forza's a bad example because it's only on the Xbox, but when you've got the PC coming into it and the Xbox coming into it, they develop for the PC and then scale it back for the Xbox. So yeah, the Scorpio, as you said before, the Scorpio is actually bridging that gap, and it is going to be the closest to a PC-like experience, premium experience, as you're going to get in a home console. And that alone is something to get excited about.
Definitely. I'm a console gamer now. I used to do PC, as most of the listeners out there know, and I'm all for playing on whatever platform makes you happy, and what you can afford too, because there is that price consideration. But I really like the strategy that Microsoft is employing here. The idea of having 3 consoles. And here's the other thing, right? If you're an Xbox One owner or a Slim owner, guess what? You don't have to throw everything away, because Microsoft is still making all the latest games for all of our consoles. It's just whether you choose to be on that end or on this end or in the middle. So from that perspective, it's great. So we're not throwing everything out the window again. Because the other day when I mentioned Scorpio, Chris, first thing my wife said is, you're not buying another bloody console. And I said, well, hang on, easy. I am buying another console, but I get to keep my games, my controllers, and it's just going to, I'm going to trade that one in, and I'm going to pay the gap. And like last time with my Switch, it's going to work out really cheap. All right. Got her over the line, listeners, by that much. But yeah, it's a fair point, because a lot of people, again, how many people will buy this? How many will it sell to? It's kind of like I compare it to the PlayStation 4 or the VR. Again, barely 1 million units in sales worldwide, but it's still considered to be doing well because it's catering to a unique niche market. Same sort of thing. Again, PS4 Pro sales, I don't think I've seen any real statistics from Sony yet in terms of its split of, say in the last 6 months or 12 months since the Pro, 6 months, isn't it? Yeah. 6 or 7 months since the Pro's been out.
Yeah.
How, of the total sales that have been made worldwide, what percentage of those are PS4 Pro sales? That would be interesting to know, to see who's adopting that new technology. But yeah, I'm not sure. But I would dare say at least 30% of current sales should be the Pro sales. If I was to take a rough guess, for those wanting to future-proof themselves. Then again, some people just may want to get in with the lowest possible price, like $299 or $329 versus $559. Interesting.
The interesting thing about the whole Scorpio thing is, will the price stay at the $699 or $749 price, and for how long? Because I mean, it will be by far the most expensive console on the market. So I wonder how long it'll stay at that price point.
It's a good question. Just like, I guess, with every other Microsoft console, I mean, the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 launched at $550, right? So now they're down to specials at Big W and Target. They were dropping the original ones down to $199. That's within about 3 years. So, as the technology gets better and the economies of scale continue to grow, you will see the price come down or the value increase. So, hey, everyone had a 500 gig drive. Guess what? We've all got 2 terabytes now, and the price stays the same. Or we still keep rolling the 500 gig model, but we drop the price down $150. Like, Microsoft and Sony are aggressively doing that strategy. Like, make no mistake, the second Xbox One's price is announced, you will see a cut to the PlayStation 4 Pro, guaranteed. I put money on it right now.
Yeah, I would agree, actually.
Right? Because you've got to stay competitive. That's right. VR units will drop in value as the technology, gets cheaper to produce, and more people, they want to get more people to buy the product. The price will come down. You would hope. So I would say not straight away, Chris, but I would say at least a year before I would expect to see any movement in that department.
Yeah, and I would say that's a brand specific thing, because if we see Nintendo, they're pretty stubborn on their pricing. So it is very brand specific.
Nintendo, they are the exception to the rule. You can still go in and find a used. It was funny because I saw some guy on eBay the other day, and he was losing it, going, all these Wii U games. I've never seen so many Wii U games on the shelf. Why are these ones $5 and everything with Mario and Zelda and all the first-party titles, listeners, $69? And he goes, mate, because they're just great games. And he goes, yeah, but so's Halo, and it's like $28. Like, so's Uncharted, it's like $26. So I get the argument, but Nintendo doesn't move on their price, and you'll still see the Wii U $2 or $429, with a game right now, and the Switch is $459 with a game. It's like,
yeah. Sometimes
what's going on?
Sometimes it's just crazy, but it's also bold, and they've done this for quite a while now. But yeah, I remember, it's bringing up a funny story actually. I remember walking into I think it was a Target like a couple of years ago, well after the Wii has been completely dead, and there's Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 sitting on the shelves for $90. And it's like, I don't think they're ever going to sell. Maybe, but probably not. And it's just crazy. I mean, that's coming from the big wigs at Nintendo. It's not coming from Target, that's for sure.
No, exactly. What other games was I seeing? Yeah, I've seen a fair few games like that where you'd be like, man, that price is just way too expensive. Way too expensive. Now, just make sure my computer's not doing too many things, listeners. That's going to slow us down. But because this is my first time at doing this video editing stuff, so I'm just shutting anything unnecessary down. But while I'm doing that, in our last podcast, I did talk about an additional game that was coming out for the Wii U, bye-bye Skype, called Darksiders War Mastered Edition for the original. It was supposed to be out late March, and it's been delayed now to, well, a lot of people are saying, oh, the Wii U's dead, that's why they cancelled it. Apparently it's been delayed now to May 23rd. So that game is still coming out, and the publisher and developer have said it is definitely still coming out. So it is not dead, folks. It is not dead.
That is crazy. I mean, at least in terms of first-party titles, we know that it is pretty much dead. But yeah, that is just crazy. I mean, as much as I do love the Wii U, I admittedly have moved on. Like, it's just the nature of the beast, I guess. But yeah, I don't expect that to sell too well, despite Darksiders being an amazing series. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Before we get on to some of the other stuff on the website reviews and what we're playing, Chris, you had one particular piece you wanted to bring up today?
yes, so if it isn't already obvious, I'm completely in love with the Nintendo Switch. It's my go-to console, and it's actually very hard to sit down at my PS4, or even I'm still playing the Xbox 360 actually, to actually sit down and game on those consoles now, just knowing that I won't be able to pick it up and play it somewhere else and continue. It's just a thing that the Switch has brought, that it's just so unique and something that I love so much. But anyway, I saw an article midweek on Nintendo Life, I think it was. We're seeing a Switch Charge case, which has been started on Indiegogo, which they're claiming to bring 12 hours of extra battery life through a charge case. Now, I normally go pretty minimal when it comes to cases and screen protectors on my stuff, but considering the battery life of the Switch and how, well, let's be honest, it is quite poor. This is interesting, and I do want to back it. I've got like my finger on the trigger, but it's thick, and it adds a bit of bulk to the Switch, and you have to balance whether or not it's actually worth it. But 12 hours is huge. That is like,
so it's obviously got some major battery included in that, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it'll have to some slim line, because I've got like, I think, a 10,000 milliamp battery, and the thing is heavy. If I put that behind my two together, that's pretty material.
Yeah, this case has a 12,000 milliamp battery, so that's huge. And
the same, yeah.
I mean, if they can pull this off, I can't remember who the campaigners are, but if they can pull this off, that is a huge feat, and I think it will sell really well. But yeah, just something to think about for Switch owners, because that is huge. Like that brings the Switch to the console with the longest battery life in probably a decade. If we think about it, the Game Boy, I think, was in at around 15, 20 hours. So yeah, it's pretty significant.
Yeah, awesome. So any date or release time potential for where this may hit the market?
Not that I could see. I know that the campaign's been running for about 20 days, so you still got time to jump in. I have zero affiliation with them, but I just, obviously it's a big talking point considering the Switch's battery life. So yeah, if that's something that peaks to you listeners, jump in while it's hot, I guess, because the the early bird price is half the price. So I think they're putting it at $70 US, which is a lot of money. But considering how much battery life it's giving you, I feel it's probably worth it. But the estimated price on release after the early bird is $150 US, so it's quite significant.
Wow, that's a lot for a portable battery. Awesome. So, yeah. Thank you for that. There you go, listeners. That's pretty much most of the news we wanted to go through this week. Because we want to make sure this podcast actually goes to air, due to the fact that we're experimenting here, and B, it's because we're going to have a shorter show this week. There you go. So let's jump on to, and we're missing 3/4 of the team. Everyone's working this week, and lots of stuff happening. So what I thought we'd do now is look at some of the reviews that are up on the site this week, listeners. So again, we don't go through the reviews here. We've got beautiful write-ups of all of these, so you can read them at your own leisure. But just to give you a rough sort of rundown, Leon took a look at 2 titles. One was called Torment Tides of Numenera.
Yep, you got it.
Beautiful, for the PC. Enjoyed that quite a bit. I'll just double check his score on that one. Gave it a solid, 9 out of 10, listeners. Something you're definitely going to want to check out. He also took a look at Atlantic Fleet iOS, and 7.5 out of 10. So again, solid game, worth checking out. Chris got his hands on something a little early from Nintendo, which I must say thank you to. For the 3DS, I think you had zero expectations for this game, Chris, but came out of playing it extremely impressed. Bye Bye Box Boy.
Yeah, what an incredible title. I even jumped at the opportunity of grabbing the exclusive amiibo as well. The only experience I had previous to this title with the series is back in the first game on the 3DS, and it's just an incredible puzzle game. It's something that we haven't really seen before. It's incredibly unique, and yeah, definitely check it out. Especially at the price point of like $8 or $9, it's just totally worth it. So yeah, definitely check it out.
Yeah, I don't have that game yet because you reviewed it, but I did get the amiibo, listeners, and it is part of the collection. Let me tell you.
You've got to grab it all.
Yeah, and it's only got Japanese box art as well, listeners, so it's not even a local release. So only available through the official Nintendo eBay store, listeners. If you want to get, actually you can't. They're sold out, aren't they? Yeah.
All 350 are gone.
Is that all they dropped?
Yeah.
They need another tree fitty. All right. Speaking of other news that I missed that, but I thought I would just quickly explain this one. Outlast 2 is getting released in Australia. Now, there was a bit of a hoo-ha about the what was originally submitted. Now, I can tell you, and this is our quote, the original submission of Outlast 2 sent to the Australian Classification Board contained the final game code and a video file for reference taken from the alpha version. This video file should not have been sent along with the game, as its content was not represented in the game. In the second submission, this was all fixed, and basically the game was approved for release with an R18 rating. There will be only one R18 version of the game available worldwide, so there's no going to be an Australian nuded version. It is all the exact same version, so it's good to know that it got sent and approved. Probably the person who sent the wrong bit of stuff through probably needs a slap on the wrist, if that's indeed how it went down. But either way, the game's coming out, so I just thought I'd mention that as well. Next review up was mine, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, this took a while to get together because basically I've been spending all my waiting free time playing it. And I figured, we all know it's going to be a perfect 10 out of 10, so who are we kidding? But I wanted to experience as much as I could before I wrote it, especially with a game like Zelda, because I didn't want to leave any stone unturned. I wanted to experience, the bosses and the dungeons, however you want to call it, the divine beasts, and experience enough of the game and explore enough to form a real opinion about it, which I did. And that game is truly amazing and probably game of the year. I'm just going to call it now because that is an incredibly high bar to set. And people can't say, oh, it's just another Zelda title and you're always going to give Zelda a 10 out of 10. But this Zelda title redefined itself as a game. Okay? It didn't just do what everyone else did and everything's the same as before, the same formula, the same dungeons, just a different timeline, This whole game has been turned on its head, from gathering resources to finding hearts, making food, resting, weapons breaking, like everything is back and fundamentally different. And I love it for that. So perfect 10 out of 10. Carl reviewed Mass Effect Andromeda for the PlayStation 4. And let me tell you, he was not happy, listeners. Everything you've heard about bugs, poor facial animations, broken code, broken game saves, and a righteous old mess, that is what this game was. scoring only a 5 out of 10. And we had a bit of a debate about whether this game should have been so heavily burnt on the score. But if you got this game like he did when it came out and it was as busted as it was, how can you justify any higher? Even if a patch has come out, which it did come out, I think, the day I put the review up a few days ago, even though that patch came out, is it fair to now, we've had this discussion, listeners, but for Chris's benefit, is it fair to re-evaluate the score and say, well, now that the patch is out and it fixes the facial animations and it's fixed that game save bug and, it's not dying on you anymore, so now it's worth an 8?
No, not at all.
No. It's the day... Yeah, go, Chris.
Yeah, sorry, Paul. Yeah, at the time of review, that's how we base our scores. I think, from my standpoint, I actually think this game was totally rushed. It probably needed a couple more months to be, completely finished. But yeah,
I believe the original timeline was a few more months, but the investors or someone said, like, push it forward, something along those lines. So they brought it forward, but they really shouldn't have.
Yeah, what they didn't consider was the massive fan base, and Mass Effect has been on hiatus for quite some time, and they haven't done fans any justice at all. It's so disappointing. I played the first Mass Effect, skipped the second, skipped the third, and I doubt I'll be looking at Andromeda. Considering how many other games are out that are just setting such a high bar.
Agreed. Speaking of setting a high bar, I'm not sure if this one did, but you definitely went in with an expectation. Snake Pass.
Oh boy, Snake Pass. I don't even know what to say, to be honest. A couple months before the release, I was super hyped, and I picked it up, and it's a love-hate relationship. There's so much going on. It's it's a fresh new take on the puzzle platform genre, but at the same time, the camera is like 90s style. Like, that's the best way of putting it. Like, it just doesn't sit where you want it to. Not to mention the controls you kind of battle with, and you never really get used to it.
I found myself dying a lot, like not being able to slither and control as well as I could. It's like, why is he falling? And he just dead.
Yeah,
and the respawns, back to the start every level. Like the respawns, like every time I would die, I was like, back to the start completely. Like, not even a midway checkpoint. It was like, come on.
Yeah.
It's brutal in that regard.
There are checkpoints, obviously, but sometimes you miss them, and if you do, then you get severely punished. But,
get burned.
I don't even know what to say. It's an impressive title, but it just needed some extra polish. That's the best way of saying it.
I won't deny that. But you know what? Bought it because I just wanted something on my Switch apart from Zelda. And yeah, that's why I bought it. But we'll see. There's more games coming out, so see how we go. Speaking of upcoming games, that's all we got on the site for review. But what's coming out the next few days? Well, for PlayStation 4, we've got... No, geez, they got some funky title names. Danganronpa 1 and 2 Reload on the 10th. We've got Touhou Genso Wanderer also on the 10th. For Xbox One, I've got a title and PlayStation called Deformers coming out on the 11th, and PC as well. Yooka-Laylee. Hopefully my review copy can finally turn up this week. But tell you what, there's some mixed reviews out there about this game, and we haven't played it yet, listeners, but some sites are saying it's terrible Yooka-Laylee, 2 out of 10. Other sites are saying it's 9 out of 10 as Banjo Bliss. Others are saying it's a bit middle of the road. They didn't really modernize it for current controls, and that it's got that whole 64-bit style about it. That's because that's what they were going for. But I don't know. I'm a Banjo fan, so hopefully I think this is who the game was intended for, and I do think that's probably where I'll be one of the fans that will probably go, oh my God, it's amazing. It's 8 out of 10. But I have heard a few things like there's only like 5 levels. One of them's just ridiculously silly, like a casino level, where it's just crap versus some of the other platforming levels that are truly amazing. So I don't know what's going on there, but I'm still keen and I can't wait to get my hands on it this week when she comes out.
Yeah, no, with ukulele, go in with zero expectations, or at least that's my approach, and just turn away all media for this one. Honestly, it's obviously it's obviously doing homage to the Banjo-Kazooie series, but yeah, much like Has Been Heroes, that's another one that I'm currently playing through at the moment, and you just have to. Sometimes you just got to turn off review media and just go for it, because it can just get in the way sometimes.
Well, I did the same too. That's why I said, Chris, do you recommend it? All right. I mean, it was the only review score I needed to hear, even before it's officially out there. So, but I'm enjoying it so far. It's brutal though. I mean, you muck up a level and it's like you don't go back a step, the whole level's over with. You got to start again. So I don't think I've gotten very far. I haven't even got to my first boss because I keep dying on one particular part, and that's it. But maybe you can give me some tips later, Chris, because role-playing games are not my forte. One did pick up last week, which was cover for the Xbox One. I do realize the Switch version is coming out this week, but I've already bought it on Nintendo, so I've supported Nintendo once with this. I want my achievements, damn it, for Lego games. I'm sorry. That's how I am. But it is fantastic. And that game's coming out this Wednesday for the Switch. So finally, the title for Switch owners, that will be tremendous value. Absolutely. Huge game. Lots of fun. I definitely advise you to pick that up. Rogue Storm is coming out on the 12th of April. A PlayStation 4, looks like a VR title, Star Blood Arena. So for those who have a VR unit, definitely get your hands on that. What else we got? Oh, I got a pre-order for this. Again, I got the Xbox version, listeners. I did say I would support the Switch, but you know what? Here's my problem, right? I'm gonna throw a little spanner out there and see if you guys agree. $50 for the Xbox One version, $50 for the PlayStation 4 version, $60 for the Switch version. What the hell? Is portability worth $10? Maybe to some people, but for me, chatting with my friends in a party, even if they're not playing the same flipping game, and earning achievements and feeling like I'm being rewarded, to me is worth $10. I'm happy to do it. But, some of these, the pricing's got to be, if it's first party, I understand. But if it's third party and you're giving people a choice that have all consoles, they should not be paying for portability. They already did that, but as far as I'm concerned, by paying $469 for your hardware, which was pricey, given its power compared to the other consoles. If you're talking chips and RAM and GPU now, right? You paid for portability in the console. You shouldn't be paying for it in your games. DS games are cheaper. So why the hell have this price differential? Like, what are your thoughts on it? I mean, people are saying, oh, cartridges are more expensive. No, cartridges are cheaper to develop for and use. They said that. That's why they went with cartridge. So I'm not following.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, with Lego City Undercover, for an example, I've played the 3DS version. That was a couple of years ago, and loved it. Absolutely loved it. But, the console kind of had its limitations. There were frame rate drops, and I mean, I looked past it because it is such a great game. But coming into the Switch version, the portability, as you said, Paul, that's where I see the value. As I said before, I'm finding it very hard to actually sit down and play a PS4 or Xbox 360 game, just because I won't be able to pick it up and, take it to work on my lunch break, or, take it somewhere. So for me, it's worth it.
Unless you have Windows 10, you got the Xbox version with crossplay.
That's true.
Don't mind me, co-workers. I'm just catching up on some recall.
I get it.
Yeah,
But
you can hide the Switch like. It's
yeah.
quite doable.
Well,
It's a good point.
yeah, I'll make. I'll go on a bit of a side note, but I'll make a comparison to the Vita. Vita titles were around the same price point, possibly cheaper. That's one of the few things they got right with the Vita is the price point of the games. But one thing that is actually disappointing me about the Switch is like a party chat feature or any kind of online capabilities. I know that it's coming, but I mean, maybe you can chime in, Paul. Is chat even coming for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe?
It's still coming for the Wii U.
No,
It's still not here. This is the problem with Nintendo, right? As much as I love you, I've got to call bullshit sometimes. Go back and watch the Wii U launch. Kids get stuck in a game. I better call somebody. Through Skype. Hey, Gramps, video conference. Oh, you got to go through here to go through there. Okay, see ya. Boom. Beats the game. Never came. Chat never came. Online never came. Yeah, apart from games like Mario Kart 8 that had online, there wasn't an actual service there, right, for everybody to use. They really need something. They need some sort of reward system. Even if you do things in game and you earn like 5 Mario coins, like like you do for playing Super Mario Run, right? Something like that. Give people rewards for playing your games. We love it. We need rewards. If you get rewards going, then I can say, oh, I'm still getting that. But, you know how we party up with our Switches? We turn on our Xbox consoles, and Chris has seen it, but he can't do it because he hasn't got one. But, Chris, you really got to do it on Windows 10, right? Is log on, join a party. It's just a voice party, and the whole team is having a chat, talking. I'm playing my PlayStation. He's playing his Vita. Someone's playing an Xbox game. Another person's playing their Switch. But we're all using our Xbox for its party chat features. And that's what Nintendo needs so bad. Like, I really hope this app that's coming out that they've been talking about, the companion app that allows you to go online, I really hope it brings this to the table because I really think it needs it. And, Chris, I know you've got one and my nephew's got one and other people, my brother. It's like we could actually have a chat, instead of having to turn on the second console to do that. So, I really hope that is something that's added. Definitely.
Yeah, I'm gonna make another Vita comparison, but the Vita actually had party chat day one. Like, that's crazy. And to me, that was such a big thing to be able to step in with some friends and, rip into some Unit 13 at the time. That was a launch title. Just not here for the Switch. And it's so, don't get me started. Like, it's incredibly frustrating. And who knows if this companion app is even going to cover that? Like, we actually don't know.
It might not. It might not even do
jack
all. Might be a year down the road, and that's just crap. So
we're still waiting on Virtual Console announcements as well. But don't even get me started on that.
In next week's show, no. Speaking of what else is coming out, and I did order it on the Xbox One because, again, I want my achievements, is Stardew Valley coming out this week on the 13th. This week? Yeah, 13th. Wow, it's going fast. I'll only go up to the middle of the month. Ping Pong VR coming out on the 16th. And then a full Dark Souls 3, the Fire Phase edition, coming out on the 21st of April. Cities Skylines coming out on the 21st. ATV Renegades on the 21st. For both Xbox and PlayStation, all these games. They're pretty much always both. Lock's Quest as well on the 25th of April. Sniper Ghost Warrior 3 Stealth Edition coming out X1 PS4 on the 26th of April and PC. And Outlast Trinity is slated for the 26th of April as well. So fingers crossed that sticks to its release date. Dragon Quest Heroes 2 for PlayStation 4 on the 28th. And that's probably about it, I would say. No, Little Nightmares Special Edition for the 28th of April for Xbox One. This is one Switch game I'm going to be getting. Puyo Tetris on the 28th of April. That's a good game for portability. Puyo, if you've ever played it before. And that's pretty much most of it. Oh, no, it's not. One listeners, crucify me later. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the 28th for the Switch.
I was waiting for it.
Yes. And Atari Classics Flashbacks on the 30th. Is that it? My God, it's a big month.
Yeah.
Big month with lots of smaller titles, but you know what? Mario Kart 8 is probably definitely the next Switch title I'll be getting. That and Puyo Puyo, so I'm looking forward to that as well.
I've still got money waiting for Horizon Zero Dawn and Yakuza 0. I've just been so tied up with Zelda. It's unbelievable.
Oh, you haven't played those yet? Okay.
No, I'm still waiting.
Okay, done. All right, so that's pretty much what's coming out. We'll just finish up with what we're playing, listeners, and some shout-outs. Chris, I'll let you go first, mate.
Sure. So the past couple of weeks, still dipping into Zelda. I'm still only about 20 hours in or something. I've only taken one Divine Beast down, so still got a fair way to go. But I think what I'll do with Zelda is actually just chip away at it in between other games. I'm finding that that's the best way to play it at the moment. Apart from that, I've got a personal review coming for Has Been Heroes. As I said before, very surprising considering the review scores that are out for that one. My only real experience with roguelike, is Binding of Isaac. It is kind of similar to that. Binding of Isaac, obviously a top-down dungeon. But yeah, Has Been Heroes. Wow, it really surprised me for the $40 price point that it is, and a physical copy, should I add. It's impressing. It's really nice to just jump in for 5 or 10 minutes and just play a quick game. And you do die a lot. That's exactly the purpose of this game, to just, to push on and then start all over again, start fresh. But there's plenty of unlocks. There's heroes to unlock. There's there's abilities, different spells, enemies. It actually keeps track of the enemies that you unlock as you go through. Okay. And so I won't spoil the review, but I'm having a lot of fun with that. And that pretty much wraps up my titles for this week.
Too easy. For me, Zelda. I'm kind of like Chris. I'm chipping away at it, but maybe a couple more chips, with big spoon chips sort of thing. But I'm still not far through it. I mean, I put probably about 100 hours into it, but not 100, maybe about 60, 70. But
that's still pretty significant.
I'm only on to my third Divine Beast, and I still feel like there's so much I've got to do. So, not overly doing too much there. What else have I played? I bought Has Been Heroes based on Chris' recommendation, unofficial recommendation, but I still took it. And it's good so far. And I picked up a few games on sale. JB's got some real good stuff lately. I picked up Deus Ex Mankind, that latest one, and Trackmania Turbo, and I actually like Trackmania Turbo. It reminds me of the stunt car racer, the old Amiga 500, which is good. Oh, side note, apparently on Steam you can vote for a remake to be made for a game called Gods on the Amiga. You so got to click that, listeners. That was one of the best games by the Bitmap brothers that I ever played on the Amiga 500. Gods. Give it a Google. I'll try and find a link for the site. Definitely worth it. Side note. Also, I picked up an NES Mini, which now my daughter has seconded, and she's playing Mario Brothers 3. So much for that. But I'm glad she's into the old school stuff too, because she plays the Wii U. But Skylanders and a Mario Kart 8. But that's she really likes the original Mario Brothers. So yeah, it's good. And they're back in stock at Target too, guys. $99. Do not buy one from a scalper, because they are out there. And I saw a whole bunch today at 2 Targets. So it looks like another mother load has arrived.
Yeah,
very carefully.
I actually got a message from a friend. He managed to pick one up, actually the last one at his store, from a JB Hi-Fi. And he messaged me asking me, because he's actually seen my console. I've managed to hack it. And I've got the entire NES library on there, and he's tapping me on the shoulder to get that done for him. But it's a great little a great little machine, honestly.
Mm.
And the fact that it's officially licensed as well is just awesome, from a collector's background anyway.
You see, for my collection, listeners, that's about all the NES games that I have up there, about, I don't know, 20-something. Just the classics that I love, and I got a few down the bottom there, but they're hiding. Yeah, I don't have a massive collection. I just want it to be a meaningful collection.
There is so much to look at. There's so much to look at there, dude. Like, holy crap.
Yeah, it's big. I will do a game room tour soon, listeners, for those that are interested at some stage. But if you notice quite carefully, or I point my finger, let me just work this out. That's a Japanese version of the NES Mini as well, which I had to get. But man, the cords are short. They're like this. Like I had to buy extender cables from eBay so I could connect the thing up and actually sit on my couch, listeners. So just bear that in mind. If you get one, you may be a close experience. But anyway, it'll be fun.
And you don't even need the officially licensed extension cables or anything like that. Honestly, it's actually originally a Wii extension cable. So just grab it from wherever and you'll be set.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. All right, time for some shout-outs. Firstly, I'd like to shout out to the team. Obviously, Chris, who's been with us for about a month now or so, I'd say. It's going great, and it's good to have him on board, and he's provided some great reviews, listeners, so please check those out. Shout out to the rest of the team that couldn't be here today. Kyle, Shane, and CJ. So, and Leon, who doesn't really podcast much, but internet problems, guys, which he's working on slowly. Right. But anyway, he's getting that fixed. So shout out to the rest of the team. Don't forget, we have EB Expo coming up this year. Tickets are on sale. We will all be there. It's the event we love to cover every year, listeners. So please get your tickets and make the trip up to the Gold Coast. Stay an extra day. Go to Movie World. Have some fun with the kids, family, friends, whatever. And finally, I would like to welcome a new contributor to the site as well. I'll officially unveil it on the site this week. This first review, and that's Gavin Peterson, who is joining us as well, which is good. So it's good to see the DJ site continuing to grow. We'll be doing a whole bunch of website work as well coming up in the near future as well, to tidy a few things up and make things a bit more streamlined and just help you find things a bit easier on the site. And yeah, lots happening. So good time to be following DJ, I think. And again, we do it because we love it. We're not experts. This isn't the world's best camera. This isn't the world's best headset. But we do it because we love it. And that's the main thing. So with that, I think that's going to wrap us up for our first video podcast. Audio versions will be available, of course, on the usual Podbean channel. And that should wrap us up, Chris, I would say.
Yeah. I've got a few shout-outs, I guess. Shout out to the team. And shout out to yourself, Paul. You've been incredibly welcoming, and honestly, I was saying to you before midweek how joining DJ's kind of rekindled my love for gaming amongst everything else in life. So it's been really good, and I'm a creative writer, so I love contributing to the site. Also shout out to Gavin, the newest member of DJ. Welcome aboard, and hopefully you enjoy your time.
Definitely. Thank you, Chris. It's good to have you on board, mate. It's great stuff. Good writing too, and good podcasting, and giving me ideas like this, listeners. I've got to sometimes be dragged, kicking and screaming through a few things, but it's all worth it in the end.
There's a lot of exciting stuff in the works, I would say.
Definitely. All right. Well, that's going to wrap us up, listeners, for this episode of the DJ Podcast, episode number 240. And as always, may all your games not be $10 more expensive on the Nintendo Switch. You heard me. Peace out, listeners.
Catch you later, guys. See you next time.